As usual, you know this particular gospel, but a couple of things I'd like to point out to you and to myself as we go through this next week. The first thing I'd like to point out to you is the statement where it said that the apostles, those around him, were exceedingly surprised at what Jesus said. You want to know why that's important? Yeah. Say yes. Yeah. Are we awake here? You're not together yet. Okay. This is the reason. In their spirituality, it was thought that if you gained wealth, you were blessed by God. If you didn't have it, you were not blessed by God. So you can see how these persons were exceedingly astonished. They had not heard this before, because the goal in their life was to be sure that they were able to raise their status, and they did that through either farming or selling or whatever trade they might have. So they always, like any of the rest of us when we grew up, we wanted to move up and be able to better take care of ourselves. So this was really, really powerful. So what is the point here? You know that the disciples, when they left and followed Jesus, they did not leave behind every physical thing they needed. They brought with them what they needed in order to do the work that Jesus sends them to do. So they didn't stop wearing clothes. They didn't stop eating. They didn't stop having a little sip of wine here and there. And they're going to have to go to the store to buy other supplies as they go along their way. So it's not about the goods. It's about how we look at the goods that we have. And what's being pointed out to us as we live in this very day is that it's very clear when you got up this morning, you got up in a home or an apartment. Most of you were not on the street, so you had a home or apartment. You maybe had a cup of coffee. You had those things that surrounded you. All those things helped you to get here this morning. And some of you needed coffee more than others. I'm one of them. So it's important as we go through this week not to get the wrong impression from this particular gospel. You and I, by the way in which we're made, have to use material things in order to live in this world. Now you can imagine, I always use a silly example to bring us back to reality a little bit. Let's say we as a community decide we're not going to use our cars any longer. We're going to use horses. Think how far that would get. I don't even know how to take care of one. Going from where I live to here on a horse, that would really be something. I did think about riding a horse up the aisle once here. But do you see what I'm talking about here? So what is the point? The point is this, that where we are at this particular time, because this theme will come back again, keeps coming back. The church authorities are trying to suggest something to us, and it's this. Excuse me. The simple sentence is this: what is it that I need to live my life in a respectful way. And I pick and choose the things that I need in order to do that. So we know we need transportation, a home, a certain amount of clothing. But I want to give you an example. Excuse me. The allergies have been bad. Excuse me. I worked in another parish years ago, and I would do my walk. And there's one gentleman from the church that I knew real well, and he had a nice medium-sized home, very neat on the outside, neat garage. But I was surprised his car was always sitting outside. I said, isn't this interesting? He has this real nice Mercury, big sedan, but it's always sitting outside, and he has a beautiful garage here. The place was close enough to where I live, so I went by his home frequently. One nice day I'm walking, and I see he has the garage door open. And he's wheeling his mower, putting away in that garage. That garage was stacked full. He had a walkway this wide where he pushed that lawnmower in there. Interesting. He backs out. I don't know whether he couldn't turn around or not. Backs out. Then shuts the door. And I'm thinking to self, that stuff back in the corner, he probably hasn't looked at for years. You know what the trouble with stuff is? It really doesn't take care of itself. Because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, what am I going to do with this stuff? What am I going to do with this stuff? And so interestingly, he's willing to let his car grow old to stuff his garage full of these things, which are not worth as much as the car is. What kind of thinking is that? Well, we're not going to criticize him. He's living his life as he sees it. But the big question that the Lord asks us, what do we need? As we proceed forward in this life, am I able to choose that which I need and not always necessarily what I want? Now, we can't forget that there are birthdays, there are anniversaries, we have Christmas. At those times, we do special things, and we get some things that we really want. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as we go throughout our life, we can, after a while, be bound by the things that we're attached to. And that's what the gospel is after us today. It's simply saying to each one of us, what is it that you need to live a respectful life? And in that way, our life becomes a little simpler. Because with all of this, I always get a kick out of when I walk or drive through the different subs that we have in the area here, and I see garage sale. And you can see a lot of the items that, were advertised on TV, and there they are. The one that keeps coming back is the hula hoop. I should have saved mine, sold it this time to get a little bit more money out of it. But the stuff begins to repeat itself. Dearest family and friends, I am not, nor is the gospel here to criticize you. It's only to make you aware of that the most important thing in our life is to be able to do one loving act at a time as we move forward and at some point meet our Maker and enter eternal life. And the gospel is suggesting we can best do that when we simplify our lives, when we're able to use this simple statement, what is it that I need, rather than what is it that I want. And in doing so, we use a respectful amount of the materials that we have in our world so that we can more fully live our lives. This is the simple message. Now, we can point out all kinds of things. I really like classic cars. The only one I have is about this big. Now, you know the famous Jay Leno? He has 130 of them. How many of those do you think he drives? He's a very good mechanic, very good at it. I don't want to criticize him, but 130? My God, I don't know whether he can even remember those. But do you see this simple point about what can happen to us? What do we need to live a respectful, loving lives? That is the question we answer ourselves, and we do not criticize ourselves. Because when Jesus offers this message, just like he did in the gospel, he's there to help raise us up and help us to live more simply, more faithfully, and respectfully. There's no criticism there. He calls us in this manner because of his deep, intense love that he has for each one of us. It is not about our mistakes. It's about our willingness to respond and do one loving act at a time.